Greetings, true believers. It's a sad day for the planet. Probably most everybody on the planet knows the passing of Stan the Manly. Um, he was a real life superhero. Um, the, the things that he did for entertainment and the comic book industry are unmatched. There's nobody who's done as much as him. He's created some of the most iconic characters that we use in all facets of entertainment now, movies, TV, still in literature. A little bit of history about Stan Lee. He was born Stanley Martin Lieber in December 28th of 1922 in the Washington Heights section of Manhattan. I think that's a little north of Harlem in New York. Grew up poor. His father was a Romanian immigrant who worked as a dress cutter. As a teenager, young teenager, Stan Lee took a job with Timely Comics, which would later become Marvel Comics. He took that job for $8 a week as a gopher, running around. I think he did a lot of cleaning up and getting stuff for people. And at the ripe old age of 19 years old, he became an interim editor for Timely Comics. Of course, we had World War II coming. He enlisted in the Army, where he served in the Signal Corps. I also was in the Signal Corps, so we have that in common. I was not in the in the military at the same time as him, and so, but we were both Signal Corps. After the war, he returned to the newly renamed Marvel Comics. At this point, when superhero comics were just a lot of fights. You'd have a superpowered hero and a superpowered villain, and they'd throw punches, and they'd throw cars at each other. They'd knock each other into buildings, and pile drive people into the streets, and knock them into the other side of the town, and they'd fly back or run back, and they'd fight some more, and that was pretty much all it was. There were these two-dimensional characters that just fought all the time. And there was no real storytelling involved. And starting with Fantastic Four, he decided that he wanted to do something different. He wanted to try to make the characters interesting, give them some complexity, depth, and try to make them like you and me. And so he started that with the Fantastic Four, and I like to say that Stan Lee didn't create superheroes, but he humanized them. I've said that before, and I think that's true. I think that he took them from these cardboard cutouts to real people. He, made them flawed, and gave them that humanity that I think interests people, because I think we can relate to people who have problems and have to go through them, because we go through that stuff every day. There's stories of Peter Parker. He had trouble socializing, get along with people, had girl problems, dandruff, everything else that all the rest of us may or may not have. Stan pushed the envelope with the comics code. When he introduced a storyline where Norman Osborn had a drug addiction. He was addicted to pills, and so Peter Parker was trying to help him with that, and it was just a big storyline. That was a big problem of the day. It's still a problem today. During the 60s, during this time, there was still a lot of racial tensions and discrimination, and so part of the storyline with the X-Men was how, because they were mutants, they weren't accepted. Didn't matter what they did or how much they tried to help or what good they tried to do. Because of what they were hated and ostracized, and so that was part of the storyline behind his thinking with the X-Men. In addition to Fantastic Four and Spider-Man and the X-Men, he either created or co-created So many other characters: Hulk, Thor, Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Daredevil, Silver Surfer, Black Panther. I mean, we could go on. There's so many more to even name right now. As a kid growing up in the 70s, he influenced my work ethic, and that I would want to, starting at 8 years old, I would mow lawns and I would work and work and work, and all the way through as I got older, I'd always have a job and I was always working to buy comics. He influenced the stories that he told and the interest that I had in comic books, influenced through comic art, my art. Anybody that knows me knows that art's important to me. You can see the influence probably in comic art in my art that I do. And so he was a super influential guy in the world and in my life, and I think in the lives of so many others. And the characters he created are iconic. Growing up in the 70s, TV and media and cinema was horrible, and when it came to superheroes, that it was all garbage. You can go back and look at it, and there's nothing good. But they started the television show, The Hulk, when I was younger, and that was really good for the time. It was a good show. I know that DC made some Superman and Batman movies that were actually for the time really good, but it wasn't until Marvel characters, X-Men and Spider-Man, started making movies about them that cinema really in relation to superheroes became as huge as it is. And Marvel and the characters that Stan Lee created, the stories that he told, all of that is what makes the background for these characters that everybody loves to go see in these movies, and they make so much money and they're done so well. And I think that's all a testament to Stan Lee. He's a huge influence on the planet, and he will surely be missed. There'll probably never be another person like him that's had this type of influence in one media like this, and comic books. And I guess I've talked for long enough. So enough said. Excelsior, Stan Lee. Excelsior.